Arch and I checked out the first 2024 presidential debate last night. It'll be 2 nights ago for you because I record these videos a day in advance. The debate was actually quite odd. Usually the Commission on Presidential Debates sets up something like 4 or 5 official debates, under rules that both the Republicans and Democrats agree to, since the Commission is a bipartisan institution. For example, in 2016 there were 3 Trump versus Hillary debates and 1 Pence versus Kaine debate, the vice presidents. Same with 2012 and 2008, 3 presidential, 1 VP. In each of these instances, at least one of the events was a town hall, which meant that questions were asked by the audience. This time around, though, things are different. In 2022, the Republicans pulled out of the Commission on Presidential Debates, passing an in-party amendment prohibiting Republican presidential nominees from attending official commission events, accusing the commission of being biased against them. It wasn't only the GOP throwing a wrench into the works, though. The Biden campaign also criticized the commission's plans to hold their debates too late in the election season. Now, if you go back and look at the commission's usual schedule, their 2024 events are actually right in line with the debates of other years, being held in September and October. But nonetheless, both Trump and Biden decided to ditch the commission, with Republicans claiming they're corrupt and Democrats saying they want earlier debates. And so the 2 campaigns scheduled with each other to have, I think, the earliest presidential debate in American history on June 27th. The commission still announced its 4 normal debates, but with neither candidate planning to actually show up, good luck with that, guys. Here's my view of how things went. Trump won, and he won pretty decisively. However, he won only on charisma, not on facts. Not only did Trump present half-truths that were taken out of context during this debate, he also blatantly lied several times about the facts. But the charisma thing matters a lot when the other guy is actually a zombie. Biden had some pre-scripted platitudes that, while I generally agreed with their content, he had the speaking capability of someone who had just woken up after a long surgery. While even though Trump was spitting outright falsehoods, he was doing so with the speed and precision of Eminem during the fast part of Rap God. This tweet probably best sums up the whole thing, where the moderator asks both of them for their views on the economy, and Biden begins to have a brain hemorrhage, while Trump rambles about how he's going to kill the Grinch with really large guns and how awesome it's going to be. That is pretty much how the debate went. You guys know I don't like Trump. If I were an American, I wouldn't vote for him. But this is a huge Biden L, and it might even cost him the election. It's all due to just how old, how feeble, and how dementia-ridden he appeared on stage. His speech was halting, he seemed to constantly stumble over words and lose his train of thought, he was mumbling, he couldn't get ideas out. It was really, really bad. There was an idea floating around at the start of the year that Trump was afraid to debate Biden, that he was going to skip out. And boy, did that age like milk. Just listen to this.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what you're, anyway.
Now, don't get me wrong, Trump has also declined as well. He's also an old man. If you go back and compare, for example, Trump's bombshell performances during the 2016 Republican primary debates to what happened last night, there's no contest.
Donald, is great at the one-liners, but he's a chaos candidate. And he'd be a chaos president.
Jeb doesn't really believe I'm unhinged. He said that very simply because he has failed in this campaign. It's been a total disaster. Nobody cares. And frankly, I'm the most solid person up here. I built a tremendous company, and all I want to do is make America great again.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen. And I do have the strength.
I'm at 42 and you're at 3, so
Doesn't matter.
far I'm doing better.
Doesn't matter.
So far I'm doing better. You started off over here, Jeb. You're moving over further and further. Pretty soon you're going to be off the end.
That was Trump nearly 10 years ago now, brimming with energy. But in 2024, Trump, like Biden, also spoke slower. He slurred his words, the fire and the passion just wasn't there, and he had a tendency to go on old man rambles himself, taking detours into long, irrelevant story times that nobody asked for.
Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected.
But for as much as Trump is being affected by old age, Biden's decline is obviously significantly worse. Here's a clip from the 2020 debates between these same 2 guys.
Because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me,
1.
Chris. Wait.
Number 2.
Chris.
Number 3.
They said it would take... No, you were number 2.
No.
Chris. They said it would
This
take
guy
a
or
miracle.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I always find Trump funny, even if I don't like him as a politician. But I remember thinking back then, Biden already seemed like he was on his way out. Probably because in the back of my head, I was comparing him to the Obama years. And yet, between 2020 and 2024, there has been a significant decline that nobody can deny anymore.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death.
And no one's trying to deny it either. Here's an analysis from John Heilman from MSNBC.
As a matter of fact, having covered presidential debates since 1992, and having seen a fair number of bad nights for candidates on first debates, bad nights for incumbents, some bad nights for challengers, in terms of measuring the degree of alarm of a presidential candidate's party about their performance, I have never seen anything like this by an order of magnitude.
Yes.
This is a reporting matter. Sitting congressmen, sitting senators, sitting governors, millionaires, billionaires, across the spectrum, people who've been supportive and loyal to Joe Biden from day one and continue in some respects to be supportive and loyal to Joe Biden, freaking out last night. I can't, as a reportorial matter, I can't overstate the degree of freakout about what they were seeing. I don't know what is going to happen now, but I will tell you that by the time you got to the first commercial break, at the highest levels of the Democratic Party, senators, governors, congresspeople, biggest bundlers, biggest donors, there were conversations about what do we do now? We need to figure out how that works. And there's a story the other day in the totally non-credible, in many respects, Daily Mail, I think, a couple weeks ago, on Monday, that said that the Clintons, the Obamas, Schumer and Pelosi were going to watch this debate, and if it did not go well for Joe Biden, they were going to go and try to have the talk with him about stepping back. Many people laughed at that. It was not a credible report. You look at the Daily Mail, there's British tabloid, whatever. I had about 6 good sources after that who said that's not totally false.
On Morning Joe, probably the most explicitly pro-Biden show on mainstream TV, they also made their feelings quite clear.
If he were CEO and he turned in a performance like that, would any corporation in America, any Fortune 500 corporation in America, keep him on as CEO? If this were Donald Trump, time and time again, we talked about the Goldwater. Where's the Barry Goldwater? To walk over and tell Richard Nixon it was over, to tell Donald Trump it was over. And now the question is, do Democrats need to do the same thing of Joe Biden?
Van Jones seemed to be fighting back tears.
That was painful. I love Joe Biden. I work for Joe Biden. He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all. And he looked, I'll give you the analysis, you kind of have the old man versus the con man. I can walk you through how I'm supposed to see it and say it, but I just want to speak from my heart. I love that guy. That's a good man. He loves his country. He's doing the best that he can. But he had a test to meet tonight to restore confidence of the country and of the base, and he failed to do that. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now. We're still far from our convention, and there is time for this party to figure out a different way forward if he will allow us to do that. But that was not what we needed from Joe Biden, and it's personally painful for a lot of people. It's not just panic, it's pain for what we saw tonight.
Cenk over at the Young Turks was a lot more harsh, as alt media generally is.
And the whole time the split screen is killing Biden.
Yep.
Because he's got his mouth open, he looks confused, doesn't know where he is. He's lost his train of thought at least twice in like disastrous shape. Those are gonna be played 1 billion times in viral video after viral video. So this is an epic disaster. I see people online saying, well, okay, that answer wasn't so bad. No, it doesn't. Any particular answer doesn't matter at all. This thing is over. He looks like he's barely surviving. I don't mean the debate, I mean life.
And probably the most shocking of all, Kamala Harris, the vice president, went on CNN in the aftermath of the debate and had a pretty combative exchange, all things considered, with Anderson Cooper as she tried to run defense for her guy.
3 years ago, we commemorated the 2-year anniversary of Dobbs, wherein women across our country have been denied emergency health care,
all that may be true. All
miscarriages
that may
to the
be
point
true. But the president of the
these
United
facts are
States
very
was not
important.
able to make that case to Donald Trump on the stage tonight. I mean, you debated against then Vice President Vice President Biden 4 years ago, and he was a very different person on the stage 4 years ago when you debated him. You must, I mean, that's certainly true, is it not?
Anderson, the point has to be performance in terms of what a president does. A president who incites an insurrection against the Capitol. No, but I got the point that you're making about a 1.5 hour debate tonight. I'm talking about 3.5 years of performance in work that has been historic.
But
whether
is that
it be
the man who we saw on the stage tonight, is that the person you see in meetings every day?
The person that you saw on the debate stage that has, for the last 3.5 years, up until today, performed in a way that has been about, whether it be in the Oval Office, negotiating bipartisan deals so that we have an infrastructure, a real infrastructure plan where we're putting trillions of dollars on the streets of America to upgrade our infrastructure. Whether it be the person I see in the Oval Office who is meeting with heads of the military and the intelligence community and in the Situation Room, ensuring the safety of America. The person I see in Joe Biden on the world stage, convening world leaders who often ask for his advice, most recently just during the G7 conference. So I'm not going to spend all night with you talking about the last 90 minutes when I've been watching the last 3.5 years of performance.
Let's tune into Fox News and see what they have to say.
All right, we're live in the Spin Room where we are in Atlanta, Georgia. Joining us now with more reaction to this very important debate.
Okay, I don't even need to play the rest of the clip. That face says it all. They know. Everyone knows. By the next morning, the internet was flooded with articles on every major news site where people were saying the Democrats have to ditch Biden if they want any chance of winning in 2024. He is just too old. And that's not a personal attack. Age brings with it all sorts of decline, and it comes for all of us eventually. This doesn't discredit all of the actual good work Biden did throughout his career. It simply means his time is over. Just like yours will be one day, just like mine will be one day, just like everyone's will. Along with Kamala, there are a few coping holdouts though. Half an hour into the debate, the White House put out an official word that Biden has a cold, which is why his voice is apparently so raspy and he seems kind of out of it. Listen, whatever was in that dark Brandon secret sauce, you needed more than one dose of it, buddy. Gavin Newsom came out to swing for Biden as well, which is a bit strange, considering he's currently the frontrunner for Biden's replacement.
You were out there getting a chorus of questions about whether Biden should step down. There is panic that has set in. There is panic that has set in among people who have watched this debate, who are Democrats, people who are strategists, and some even inside Democratic campaigns. Yeah. Do you think it's unfounded?
Well, I think it's unhelpful, and I think it's unnecessary. We've got to go in and got to keep our heads high. And as I say, we've got to have the back of this president. You don't turn your back because of one performance. Well, what kind of party does that? This president is delivered. We need to deliver for him at this moment. With all due respect, the more time we start having these conversations, go down these rabbit holes, it's unhelpful to our democracy, our fate and future of this country, the world. When you use the words, I didn't have sex with a porn star, you're not winning, you're losing at that game.
I don't know if this is the angle of attack you want to go with, dude, considering that you fucked your friend's wife and then shoved your head into a mountain of cocaine.
I want to make it clear that everything you've heard and read is true. And I am deeply sorry about that. I've hurt someone I care deeply about, Alex Turk, his friends and family. And that is something that I have to live with and something that I am deeply sorry for.
If they do actually do a candidate swap at the 11th hour, I personally don't think it'll be Gavin Newsom, even though everyone else does. He's basically a lock for 2028. If he jumped in for Biden and lost now, it would pretty much end his career, kind of like how it was the wrong time for DeSantis to jump in for 2024. Some people are saying that Joe Biden's wife, Jill Biden, has basically been puppeting his carcass for a while now, and the post-debate moment where she had to help him walk down a terrifying 4 steps on the debate stage before pulling him aside to fluff him up in front of a bunch of Democrats has only added fuel to the fire.
Joe, you did such a great job. You answered every question. You knew all the facts. And let me ask the crowd, what did Trump do?
Jesus Christ, I'm surprised she didn't give him a juice box and a participation award after that clip. Due to that video going viral, stuff like elder abuse and dementia and 25th Amendment went viral on Twitter as well. And there is this unshakable vibe that Kamala has to step in, or somebody has to step in, because Biden just isn't there. That being said, somebody from Biden's campaign came out and directly stated that Joe has no intention of stepping down, that he will be the nominee.
There's always a truth-telling session when these things happen. Joe Biden is not averse to hearing things that are bad. He has to make the decision about whether he's going to be a candidate or not. He has done that, and he's going to be the nominee.
And although I don't want Trump to win, I think this will hand Trump the win. Trump is old too, but there is just no comparison in how the two came off. Of course, all the Trump supporters are having a huge laugh at the cope, pulling up various comparisons from before and after the debate. And yeah, I can see the humor in doing that. Some of these people were delusional about Biden's decline, and they now have to publicly eat their own words, which is always kind of satisfying to watch.
But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been.
This is a battle for the future of American democracy. And now is a good time. In June, thank God, in June, and not October, in June, this is the last chance for Democrats to decide whether this man we've known and loved for a very long time is up to the task.
And then some other people let the mask slip, like when a talking head over at CNN announced that Biden knew all of the questions beforehand and still could not put together coherent sentences. I thought neither of them were supposed to know the questions.
He goes through 6 days of preparation at Camp David.
More than that.
And they know the rules.
It was more than a week.
Okay, so more than a week. They know the rules. He practices with the mics. He knows every one of these questions is coming. And yet he couldn't fill the time. Now, I just want to, let's see what the White House is saying. Sources close to the White House are saying he had a cold, wasn't feeling well. I mean, as you would expect, that came out early on in the debate. But what accounts for someone with so much experience doing so much preparation and this being the outcome?
Honestly, I think the question answers itself. He wasn't capable of doing any better than he did.
Or when somebody at MSNBC alludes to Trump's upcoming sentencing for the 34 felony counts in New York as being something that tips the scales back in favor of Biden.
When we come back from the 4th of July weekend, the next thing on the campaign calendar is one of those candidates who was out there tonight is going to be sentenced by a judge on July 11th, sentenced for 34 felonies. And we don't know how big a day that's going to be in the campaign in terms of what do the polls look like a week after that.
Now, there are people online who are saying this clip proves the Democrats had a predetermined operation to jail Trump before the election so that none of this debate stuff would matter anyway. I don't buy that, but I do think that a harsh sentence against Trump will affect his electability, and that there are people in government who know this. Now, how much will it affect his electability? I don't know, we'll have to see. But approval ratings after the debate are not looking good. 2/3 of CNN's audience thought Trump won the debate. The betting market showed Biden's chances of winning nosediving, and the remaining copers are quite truly few and far between. One of the final holdouts, this random guy named Harry Sisson, I keep seeing him get retweeted onto my timeline though, and he just seems to be overdosing on copium every time I see him.
You know, all of these Trump supporters are going to be incredibly disappointed tomorrow night when Donald Trump and Joe Biden debate, because they view Donald Trump as a god, and they think that Joe Biden is sleepy. But that's not reality. What is reality is that Donald Trump has not been doing any debate prep. He's not preparing at all, whereas Joe Biden has been doing debate prep for the past 7 days. And he's been having mock debates every single day and reviewing policy and all that stuff. So what's actually going to happen is that Joe Biden's going to get up on that debate stage and slap Donald Trump around for 90 minutes.
If that were the case, bro, how did he lose so fucking badly? Did you buy those 900,000 TikTok followers or something? At the end of the night, Biden stopped by a local Waffle House and unironically showed more energy there than he did during the entire 90-minute debate. What the fuck happened? Did the adrenochrome just not kick in time or something? And then the next morning, he actually had a pretty good public appearance.
And we're still the beacon to the world. We can never give up what makes America, America. Donald Trump is motivated by revenge and retribution. Well, revenge and retribution never built a damn thing. You and I, we Americans are a nation of hope, optimism, and possibilities. That's what always built America. That's going to continue to build America today. The choice in this election is simple. Donald Trump will destroy our democracy. I will defend it.
I don't know if it's just because he's reading off a teleprompter, or maybe it's sundowning. You know, when people with dementia, they get worse at doing basic things at the end of the day, as opposed to the beginning of the day. Either way, though, he's actually alive here. He actually seems to be present. So this entire video, I've been talking about the optics of the debate, and how it was a huge L for Biden. But what about the content of the debate? Well, let's be real here. Most people didn't tune into this for an actual discussion of any real policy issue. They were here for political theater. But let's go over content anyway, at least a little bit. I have to admit though, I pulled the wool over your eyes. At least for a few of you guys. At the beginning of the video, around 2 minutes in or so, I casually dropped the exclamation that Trump lied during the debate, and then I just skimmed right over it. Why did I do that? Because I know for a fact there's going to be at least a couple of retards out there who are watching this video right when it releases, who heard me say that phrase, and then immediately left a comment screaming, "OMG, Dev has Trump derangement syndrome. He can never back up any claim he makes. He's an unhinged communist," before getting to this part of the video where we actually go over Trump's lies. And just as an aside, if you're actually that guy, you really need to have a sit down and think about why you get so triggered whenever somebody says something negative about Trump. You guys do it in my comments anytime I have even the mildest criticism of Trump. Like you're these snowflakes who can't take it when somebody doesn't pledge devotion to the God Emperor or something. You have Trump derangement syndrome at this point.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us.
Trump's very first claim right out the gate, that he had the best economy ever during his first term, is false on multiple metrics. When Trump says better, if we're talking about GDP, Trump's figure averages around 2.49%, if you take 2020 out due to COVID. If you leave it in, it's 1.18, but that's not really fair to Trump. But it's not the best ever. Bill Clinton averaged 3.88. And the best ever was between 8 and 9% in 1951. Biden's average is 3.4%, including all of his COVID years. But that probably also takes into account the COVID recovery, which also isn't exactly fair. Nonetheless, Trump does not have the best GDP ever. But GDP is only one measurement. How about employment? 1 month before COVID came to America, February 2020, Trump's unemployment was at 3.5%, which was his best ever month, and the single best month since 1969. That's pretty good, but still not the best ever. Unemployment hit 2.5% in 1953. Due to COVID, Trump's unemployment was up to 6.3% when he left office. Biden is still doing slightly better though. Biden's best numbers come from January and April of 2023, where he hit 3.4%, slightly beating out Trump's best and setting a new record for the lowest monthly unemployment for the past 50 years. Currently, Biden's sitting around a 4% unemployment. Okay, well, what about the stock market performance? 1 day before Trump left office, January 19th, 2021, the S&P 500 average closed at around 67% above where it had been 1 day before Trump took office in 2017. That is still not the best though. Obama's first term saw the S&P average rise 84.5%. Clinton has Trump beat on both of his terms. Eisenhower's first term beat him too. All in all, Trump's economy wasn't terrible or anything, but by the data, was he the best ever? No, that was a lie.
You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China, it's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously.
In reality, Trump's tariffs represent prices going up for the consumer. And this is something that we all intuitively know, because I went over a similar effect in my video on the minimum wage. Anytime government steps in and artificially inflates the price of a product, whether that's by implementing a minimum wage, driving the cost of labor up, or by, for example, adding a cap to materials needed for manufacturing, driving the cost of the materials up, or by adding a tariff to imported goods, driving the cost of transportation up. All of these have the same downstream effects. The cost of getting the final product to the shelves has increased, so the price the company sells the product at also increases. prices. In this paper discussing the economics of Trump's proposed tariffs from the Peterson Institute for International Economics, it's explained that an average household would end up spending an average of $1,700 more on the same stuff if Trump's tariffs were implemented, as the prices of all imported goods increased to cover the cost of the tariffs. Moreover, the rich would be largely unaffected by these tariffs, because it's poor and middle-class people who spend the majority of their money on imported products, whether that's food or clothing or various luxury goods. Most rich people have the majority of their money in stocks or in physical property, like land or buildings, none of which are imports.
More people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration.
Trump's technically correct here. More people did die of COVID under Biden than under Trump. According to the CDC, Trump's death toll was 467,000 and Biden's is 724,000. But you don't gotta be a genius to see the problem here, do you? Trump had to deal with COVID for the final year of his presidency, while COVID's been around for the entirety of Biden's term. Significantly less people died per day under Biden than Trump. But even that's not quite fair, because it takes into account all the time with vaccines and less harsh variants coming out. Biden's first year saw 476,000 people die of COVID, which is a roughly similar number to Trump's final year. This is one of those situations where Trump is telling a half-truth and leaving out context.
The problem they have is they're radical, because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby.
This time, Trump is just lying out of his ass. The quote he's referring to is from former governor of Virginia, Ralph Northam, who held office from 2018 to 2022. Northam's quote comes from an interview he gave with a local radio station, WTOP, back in 2019. Listen to it for yourself.
If a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother.
Now that does sound pretty bad, but what Trump did, and what every other dishonest rightoid does when they talk about this story, is leave out the wider context of the conversation. They always cut out what Northam was saying before the clip.
And governors, you know, the issue of abortion rights emerges every year in the General Assembly session. This year, no exception. There was a very contentious committee hearing yesterday when Fairfax County Delegate Kathy Tran made her case for lifting restrictions on third trimester abortions, as well as other restrictions now in place. And she was pressed by a Republican delegate about whether her bill would permit an abortion, even as a woman is essentially dilating, ready to give birth. And she answered that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor. Do you support her measure, and explain her answer?
Yeah, and I wasn't there, Julie, and I certainly can't speak for Delegate Tran, but I would tell you, first thing I would say is this is why decisions such as this should be made by providers, physicians, and the mothers and fathers that are involved. There are, when we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion. But again, we want the government not to be involved in these types of decisions. We want the decision to be made by the mothers and their providers. And this is why, Julie, that legislators, most of whom are men, by the way, shouldn't be telling a woman what she should and shouldn't be doing with her body.
And do you think multiple physicians should have to weigh in, as is currently required? She's trying to lift that requirement.
Well, I think it's always good to get a second opinion, and for at least two providers to be involved in that decision, because these decisions shouldn't be taken lightly. And so, I would certainly support more than one provider.
What's being said here is pretty obvious. Northam is talking about a case where a baby is basically not going to make it. They might die in the womb, they might take the mother with them, They might be born and then survive only a few days or a few weeks. When Trump said they want to set the baby aside, that didn't mean kill the baby after birth. Northam is clearly saying that parents or doctors would talk about whether it's appropriate to desperately try and save the baby's life using all possible resources available, or if the best course of action is to make them comfortable and provide palliative care until they die naturally. And that is a case-by-case judgment, depending on the nature of the condition that the child's afflicted with. Now, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your ass about some of the more radical leftoids who legitimately do want those unlimited abortion rights. That shit is pretty disgusting. But Trump framing this conversation as if it's about post-birth abortion is actually pretty fucking insane.
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up.
The suckers and losers thing is a he said, she said at the end of the day. It apparently happened back in 2018 and was confirmed by several members of Trump's senior staff, most notably John Kelly, who was Trump's chief of staff at the time. But there's no recording or anything, so it's always possible a bunch of people came together and just made something up. However, considering that Trump also said similar statements about John McCain in private, and in public made statements that were of the same kind, but way less harsh in tone, Trump seems to have a habit of denigrating sacrifices made by American troops. So frankly, I wouldn't put it past him to have actually said the losers and suckers thing. In other words, guys, I'm seeing the pattern. I'm a noticer now.
He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever.
For the Ukraine one, Trump is technically wrong, but wrong in a way that I don't think Trump fans will actually care about. America has not given more than $200 billion to Ukraine. America's allocated $175 billion to Ukraine, but that's not a blank check. The official budget shows that $117 billion was used to cover the cost of American companies creating military equipment that is being sent to Ukraine, while $57 billion was used to assist Ukrainian refugees and shore up the energy supply crisis in the wake of losing access to Russian markets. Now, maybe you think that America shouldn't be giving Ukraine any money whatsoever. I personally disagree with you. But Trump's claim of over $200 billion in cash is just wrong by the numbers.
And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening.
This super predator comment is one of the signs that Trump might also be suffering from some old age mental problems, as he slapped Hillary Clinton hard with that label back in 2016. Hillary was well known for using the term super predator back during the early 90s crime wave, but Joe Biden isn't. As far as I can tell, he used it once in 1997, and only to reject the idea behind the term. Either Trump is just lying, or he's doing some guilt by association bullshit, or he's legitimately starting to mix up who he's arguing with.
We had H2O, we had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
While it's true that air and water quality have been slowly improving for decades, that's due to the Clean Air and Clean Water Acts, not anything that Trump's administration has actually done. Trump tried and failed to roll back some of those protections during his first term in office, and he said he'll try and do it again in a second term. In other words, this one is true despite Trump, not because of him.
He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
As always, there are open borders crazies on the left, but Biden has never been one of them. In fact, he's implemented regulations that Trump's agreed with in the past. In February of 2023, Biden's administration began to deny asylum to migrants who show up at the American border if they haven't first applied for asylum in a safe country that they pass through to get to America. This is a rule that Trump wanted to implement in 2019, but the composition of the Supreme Court at the time prevented him from doing it. Biden's administration has also deported over 4 million illegals since he took office. There's a lot more work to do, obviously, but Trump's claim that Biden wants open borders is just a blatant lie on the face of it.
But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
Also blatantly false. Whether Trump is referring to the largest budget deficit or the largest trade deficit with China in the history of America, Biden does not hold either of those records. Trump added around $8.4 trillion to the budget deficit, while Biden added around $4.3 trillion. The trade goods deficit with China hit a record high of $418 billion under Trump in 2018 and fell to $279 billion under Biden in 2023, which is the lowest since 2010. Either way, Trump's wrong. Now, it's not like Biden didn't have his own lies or half-truths, or stuff he just got wrong. For example, Biden claimed that Trump wanted to destroy Social Security.
He wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare, both times. And that's what, and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that he, I believe, supports, is in fact want to cut it as well.
When Trump has said directly on Truth Social that he does not. But despite Biden's own factual missteps, overall he did significantly better than Trump. But we all know that these debates aren't really about facts, especially this one. They're about vibes. And Biden, despite being more factually correct, did not pass the vibe check. Biden appeared old, weak, and tired. The Democrats had 4 years to replace him with another candidate, and they stupidly waited until the final moment to even begin considering it. They should have held real Democratic primaries this year and found a replacement for Biden that voters could have actually approved of. But it's too late for that now. Now the Democrat Party has to either ride with Biden and probably lose, or replace him with somebody else, somebody who wasn't voted on but appointed by the party. And the optics on that will always look bad. It doesn't matter to your average person if Biden was more correct than Trump, even though it should. What matters is that Biden looks like he has no fucking clue what's going on around him. And the Democrats, out of arrogance or stupidity, or I don't know what, chose not to put him aside until it was too late. That is an error that just might cost them the entire race.